Here I am. Welcome to the 10th and final live of this series of offerings that I've been making. This one is the exclusive one. This one is the members only one. Hi, Misha. And this is the 10th one, Reclaiming the Keys to Your Own Queendom, the masterclass. So if you guys could just do me a favor and just type in the chat that you're here. Hi, Misha. Thank you so much for being on time. Thank you for being here. Hi, Lindsay. Thank you. Yeah, whoever's here, just drop me a little comment so I know that you're there. If you don't have a notebook handy and you would like to take notes, then feel free to grab one. I've just come on slightly earlier to give people a chance to find me. So thank goodness it looks like people are finding me, because that was the aspect of it that I was worried about. Paula's here, amazing. Ria's here, amazing. Emma's here, hello, hello. Welcome. Lindsay's watching. I feel super reassured by Lindsay's presence. She's an amazing woman. So constantly multitasking with 3 children and many businesses and other enterprises on the go. Louise, hello, hello. I'm so happy you guys have found me. Lindsay's got her notebook. I don't know what it is about people having their notebook. It makes me feel better. I think it's because I'm a teacher. So as soon as people have got their notebook, it's like I feel safe, like I know what's happening. Hello, Lucy. Thank you so much for joining. It's really nice to see you. There are about 24 women who have signed up for this class. And of that 24, there's about 14 that have said that they're going to make it to the live. So, oh, I can just see that Melanie's here. Hello, Melanie. I'm really glad you found me. This is a whole thing in itself. Setting up a group for the first time. Using a microphone for the first time. Making it paid for the first time. There's a lot of firsts here. Louise says, Lindsay is the notebook queen. Yes, me too. Is it a Pisces thing? Maybe. I don't know, but I've got a notebook for everything. Lindsay says, I was waiting for that. But have you got, Lulu's here. Oh, amazing. Have you got your sparkly pen, Lindsay? That's the $1 million question. And also, could somebody just let me know how the volume is? Because my microphone is new and it's the first time I'm using it. And previously with some of my lives, well, all of the rest of them, the sound quality's not been that great. So if somebody could just let me know if the sound quality is improved, somebody who's been listening to them a lot. Misha would know the answer to that. Lindsay, you're doing amazing. Energy in here feels amazing. Volume is perfect. Mel says it sounds great. Excellent. Ria says perfect. Okay. Alrighty. Is it 6 o'clock? Shall I start? I don't want to start early, but at the same time, I want to start on time. Haha. A new pen too. Not sparkly though. It's gonna be sparkly. Oh, Paula Healy's just arrived. That's good to see. Okay. So while we're waiting for the last few people to jump on this live, just a couple of like housekeeping things. One is that I never know exactly how long these lives are going to be, because when I start rolling, I don't really know, it's like a slightly different state of consciousness, but they tend to be around an hour and 15 minutes. So an hour and 5, an hour and 10, something like that. If you can commit to staying for the full live and taking notes and everything else, I think that would be amazing. I think that's how you'll probably get the most out of what I'm going to share this evening. However, obviously, if you've got children or you've got other things to do and it gets to a point where you feel you do have to go, then do feel free to do that. Obviously, I'm going to save this and share it in the group, and then you can come back to it at any point when you feel you have more time and space. So that's the timing aspect, the sound aspect I've checked. As you know, there's going to be a prize draw at the end. So there will be 4 prizes, and we'll get to that after I've finished sharing the downloads. So whoever else is going to join us, I guess at this point they will just pick up wherever I'm up to at that point when they arrive. So most of you who have, thank you, Paul. Most of you who have been following my journey with these lives know that for some God unknown reason, I have been guided to start communicating with people in this way. And every time I do it, it's scary, it's terrifying, I get really edgy beforehand, it's a whole process. However, the guidance is super clear to keep doing it. This is the 10th of this block of lives which I've offered, and this is the first one that I have requested payment for. So that in itself is a whole new ball game that I'm playing in of Queendom. For the purposes of this final live, it just felt so right to look at this archetype of the Queen. I'd like to share with you that these energies that I'm playing in now, this is a whole new ball game for me. So some of you have met me, in real life, and we've known each other for a long time. Some of you have never met me in real life. You've just met me on the, internet, on Facebook. For those of you who've known me for a long time, you will know that this is really a new paradigm that I'm playing in now. And I use the word playing because it is so important for me to maintain a playful energy around this in order to be able to do it. Because if I didn't retain a playfulness, it would probably be too terrifying and I probably wouldn't do it. So this final one is me playing with this energy of Queendom and sharing with you, almost like opening my diary in a way for you and to you, so that you can see what I have been reflecting on in terms of the characteristics of the Queen archetype. Why is this important? Is because I feel that we are stepping into a whole new paradigm, a whole new era, a whole new frequency of existence on this planet right now. Obviously, we're all aware of that. And what's happening for me, and I imagine that there is a good chance it's happening for you if you have been a vibrational match for this live, is that with these challenging circumstances that we find ourselves in globally, for those of us who've already started doing the inner work, and for many of us we've been doing that inner work for a long time, it feels to me like there is a huge call for us to step up now and level up and stop playing in the old paradigm of playing small and trying to fit in and not shining too brightly in case that intimidates anybody else, and all these old paradigms that have kept us somehow in a box. I feel that I personally am on a threshold of expansion like I have never experienced in my life. And the decision to do these lives, or rather the calling to do these lives, is a reflection of that expansion, right? So I've pulled out of the hat 10 qualities of the Queen archetype, right? And I may start counting them as I go through them, and then I may stop, because if I try to keep too close tabs on the numbers, I could potentially slightly lose my flow with it. So I'm just going to let it come out as naturally as it comes out. But what I will do tomorrow morning in the group is I will post what those 10 qualities are, so that, and then relevant questions that you can maybe journal around if you feel inspired to really go deeper into this inquiry. And I really urge you to do that if you want to get the most out of this masterclass. I will throw out some questions for journaling as I go along, as they come to me spontaneously. But I'll also type them up tomorrow and put them in the groups that you've got them in written form as well. Okay, so here we go. I'm just going to close my eyes. If you'd like to close your eyes with me, that would be amazing. And connect with my heart. If you'd like to take a few conscious breaths into your heart with me, that would be beautiful. And just feeling into this vibration, this container that we are creating together tonight on this live. My intention through these pointings is to begin to awaken in each and every one of you the remembrance and the realization that you are all queens, divine beings of feminine beauty, strength and power, and that we have been heavily conditioned over many centuries to suppress that power to the point where we don't often even realize that we hold it. And there is so much misalignment going on in the external circumstances right now that I feel so deeply inside of myself the calling to come back to my own power, my own sovereignty, and to inspire others to do the same according to their own intuition and their own inner guidance. So that we see more and more women reclaiming their power, reclaiming their sovereignty, and doing it from a heart-centered place, from a place of alignment, so that the whole structure of the society that we live in and create and co-create begins to alchemize into something which is much more in alignment with who we really are. And I offer these teachings in the spirit of that intention. And so it is. Aho. So, the first aspect of the Queen archetype, which I would like to share, that I have come up with from my deep dive into my own psyche around this archetype, is that the Queen leads by her own vibration. So you can write that one down if you feel inspired to write that one down. Many of the external archetypes of queens that we have in the world, including the one that, rules over this country, may not be particularly helpful archetypes for us in terms of really understanding what a truly aligned, powerful, heart-centered queen looks like. And my friend and I were talking about this the other day when we were looking for images to go for the cover photo of the group. Is like, who is a really good living example of a queen archetype? And my conclusion is that the external examples we have in the world, or the historical examples, don't really give us a very helpful representation. Hence why so many of us have not yet fully clicked with and connected with our own queen wisdom and power and alignment, because we haven't got those examples. So this requires a kind of deep dive. That's what it's required of me, is to go into a deep dive, an inner inquiry, so that I can really start to understand it from an inner place, because the external examples seem to be somewhat lacking at the moment. But I started thinking, who do I know in my life? Who have I met that really embodies that energy of a queen? And the first person that came to mind is a woman that I met in Costa Rica called Tan Maya, an Israeli lady. very small lady by stature, but her presence precedes her, right? And maybe you can think of somebody in your life. Maybe you can just pose the question in your journal, who do I know? Who do I know in my life? Who have I met that exudes the energy of a queen? For me, the first person that came to mind was Tanmaya. So then I started to think, well, what is it about Tanmaya that really exudes that energy? And there's something about her that just as soon as you meet her, she commands your respect, right? Like even the way she stands with a really straight spine. She holds her body, the energy of how she holds her body exudes this queenly, regal energy. And it's kind of hard to quantify into words, but it's really just something that you feel, right? She's a woman who is extremely forthright. You know, she speaks her truth. She speaks her truth with clarity. For an English person, it can almost come off as a little bit kind of overly direct in a way, because culturally, you know, I guess the British were quite, you know, we hold back quite a lot from being so clear. But she has a real forthright clarity about her. She's clearly done the inner work, which is such a vital part of alchemizing this queen energy. And the fundamental thing about her for me is that she has this incredible balance between being incredibly heart-centered and compassionate, but she's fierce. She's compassionate, but she's fierce. And I've seen her because she's a transformational facilitator, and I've seen her in workshops with people, and she can take people to a real edge inside of themselves and hold them there in a group therapy context. She will hold them there in that place of discomfort for longer than they are comfortable to be there. But she does it with such heart that whoever she's working with in that moment feels really beautifully held. And at the same time, she's pulling them deeper into seeing themselves, seeing their blocks, holding a mirror to people, a strong mirror, so that they can walk through those blocks, but with this really kind, loving, safe hand on their lower back. That's the energy of Tanmaya. And so for me, I remember when I met her, I said to her, when jokingly, because she's only a few years older than me, but I said to her, when I grow up, I want to be like you, which she found kind of amusing, right? But yeah, so it's really important, I think, to look for people in our lives, real life living examples of women really in their power, really in their alignment, and asking ourselves, what are the qualities of those women? And what of those qualities do I feel are already developed in myself? And are there any qualities that I'm seeing in this woman that inspire me, that I would like to begin to embody, and start to become playful with how that can start to come into your experience, right? For example, I was really inspired by Tanmaya's ability to lovingly hold space for people in group therapy, and at the same time not be afraid to hold a strong mirror, not be afraid to trigger people. And another coach that I follow sometimes said, one of the most important aspects of being a leader is not that you try to trigger people. We should never go out attempting to trigger people. But if we do trigger people, can we hold that? Can we hold that without getting embroiled in it with that person, right? And for me, that was something Tanmaya was able to do beautifully. She could trigger people if she needed to, but it was always coming from that place of her commitment to allowing them to grow and transcend whatever blocks they were working with in her loving presence. So she was a super inspiring example. And started to think a little bit more about the archetype of the she-wolf, right? Because there's something about Tanmaya as well that kind of has that, you know, she has several daughters and she has that super protective mother energy, like she'd kill anyone that kind of upset her kids or anything like that, you know. So she's got that kind of tigeress energy as well. So I started thinking about the archetype of the she-wolf. And whenever you get a pack of wolves, you always get an alpha, right? It can be an alpha male or it can be an alpha female. And usually when it comes to a pack of wolves, the alpha wolves that end up becoming the leaders of the pack are the ones with the most maturity in years. In the case of humans, it's not necessarily defined by years. Emotional maturity in many ways is something which transcends actual years on the planet. But there's something about the leader energy which is around emotional maturity. And the leader of the wolf pack emerges because that wolf is the one that exudes the energy of a leader, right? That alpha wolf does not have to persuade anybody to follow her. She does not try to coerce other wolves and, you know, into following her leadership, or to try and sell her leadership to them, or to try to you know, threaten anybody or coerce people. If they don't follow, then, you know, they're going to be punished in some way, which is, you know, tactics that humans can often use. The she-wolf, the alpha wolf, essentially exudes the energy of a leader. It is something that the other wolves feel in the energy of that wolf. She is the one with the sharpest senses. She is the one with the keenest inner guidance system. She is the one who knows where she's going. So in that sense, she is fundamentally leading herself. And the pack forms around her because she is leading herself. Her main objective is not to lead the pack. She senses where their next feed is going to come from. She senses where the spring water is going to be located. And she goes with that intuition. Naturally, the other wolves follow suit because they sense that clarity of purpose. And it's the same for us, right? That if we want to be leaders in whatever field, if we want to be people who hold space, who hold women's circles, who run hairdressing salons, and all the things that I can think of that people on this live are doing with their working life, you know, I know myself that I can sometimes get a bit lost in, you know, how can I, for example, with, you know, doing this masterclass, how can I encourage people to come? How can I pitch it? How can I sell it? What can I do to create, you know, a desire for people to come? And often we can spend a lot of time on social media promoting things and, you know, encouraging people and sending reminders and all this kind of thing. And then I dropped into this energy of the alpha she-wolf, you know, who just knows where she's going and trusts her own magnetism. And when we do that, when we have an offering to give out to the world, which is completely in alignment with who we are, which we give with our whole heart, which we have all of the credentials to offer, then the energy of trust is an essential part of my own learning in this process at the moment, that the right people, the people who are going to vibrate with this, will naturally come. And it is not my role as a queen archetype to chase anybody. And I don't know if any of you recognize yourself sometimes falling into that energy, but one of the characteristics of the queen is that she trusts her own magnetism, and she trusts that the right people will align to her. So the relationship that the queen has to others is really something which I think is an important aspect to look at, right? When we seek social approval from other people, which naturally we do, right? Because we're social creatures. So one of our biggest, you know, aspects of the conditioning, if you like, is, you know, from school days and being with work colleagues or being in families, is that we want to be accepted by the people around us. We want their approval. We want them to say, yes, you can do this, and no, you can't do that. And we rely a lot on other people to give us permission to do whatever it is we want to do. So one of the most important aspects for the Queen is to transcend the need for this social approval, right? Because the problem is that when we reach a point in our lives where we are ready to fly, where we are ready to jump, where we are ready to move to the next level of whatever it is we're doing and offering, if we are surrounded by people who have never made that leap, who have never taken that jump, who have never gone that far, how can they possibly affirm to us that it is safe to do that? And how can they possibly get behind us going further than they've ever dreamt of going, right? They can't. So it would be like the alpha wolf going ahead of the pack, casing out which route they're going to take wherever they're going. Imagine they're crossing the Dolomites, they're looking for, prey or whatever it is they're doing. The lead wolf is the one who has the courage to go ahead of the pack. But if she kept turning around to the pack and saying, do you think this is wise? Do you think this is safe? They're not going to be able to give her that approval because they haven't been where she's going. They haven't extended themselves that far. Does that make sense? So, for example, to use a metaphor, which I found like a really good example of this. If a flea, which is encoded by its DNA to be able to jump to 3 feet, right? That is naturally what a flea is able to do. If you put a flea inside a container, a glass container, like a dome, let's say, and that flea tries to jump the 3 feet that it's used to being able to jump when it's outside, and it smacks its head on the ceiling of that glass dome, that flea is only going to attempt to jump that high a few times, right? And each time it whacks its head, it's like, oof, I'm not going to try that again. That's not a good move, right? So eventually that flea stops trying to jump the 3 feet, and it only jumps to 2.5 feet because it's understood that within this container, that is as high as it can jump. Now, if that flea, this is the fascinating part of this analogy. If that flea then procreates in captivity and a baby flea is born, although that baby flea is encoded with the same capacity to jump the full 3 feet, because it's only ever seen its parent jump the 2.5 feet, the baby flea never even attempts to jump the full 3 feet. And essentially, ladies, that is what has happened to all of us. We have been placed inside a container. Society, religion, families, all these different structures that we've been born into, political systems, legal systems, all these systems that we have inherited, which are not of our own making, have taught us how high we can jump and how far we can go. And so very often we don't ever fully extend to our full capacity because we're always checking what the people around us are doing, what the people around us have done. And if they have only jumped so high, then very often we are then encoded with the same belief that we can only go that high. So asking permission or asking the approval of people around us to jump higher when they themselves are not capable of that is clearly keeping us in a place of enclosure, right? A place of limitation. So the key thing here, the key solution to this is to begin to connect with a new tribe of people, which is what a lot of us are naturally doing now. A lot of you, I'm sure, will relate to what I'm saying. That we are naturally outgrowing our friends. Doesn't mean we don't love them anymore. Doesn't mean we don't care about them anymore. But we are naturally, as we are attempting to escape from this vessel, this dome, which has kept us so limited for so long, as we are finding our way out of that dome, we are no longer a vibrational match for the people who are still stuck inside that dome, right? And they will look at us trying to escape from that. And for some people, that will be really triggering, right? They won't like it. Because when we see somebody else expanding in some way, it can be really triggering because it fundamentally creates some uncomfortable questions inside of ourselves. If we see somebody else really starting to leap higher, it poses the question, should I be leaping higher? But it's fucking terrifying to leap higher. I don't want to scare myself that much. So then we can often start to malign the person who's jumping higher because it's easier to criticize that than to step into the courageous choice to jump higher ourselves, right? So I invite you to consider, who are you surrounding yourself with? Because there is this old paradigm idea that women must compete or only one woman can be the queen, right? This is an old paradigm. Every single one of us is the queen in the film of our own life, right? I am the central character in the film of my life. You are the central character in the film of your life. You are the queen of your reality. You get to co-create your queendom. But what we have to do is we have to begin to align ourselves with other queens who have realized and who are realizing that they are in fact queens and who are stretching and challenging themselves, raising the bar for themselves and changing their own perception and by extension the perception of people around them as to what is even possible. The more you surround yourself with people who are doing this, the more exciting life becomes. We need to transcend this scarcity mentality that if this person is doing really well, that's a threat to me because, you know, this person's taking up this amount of the cake and there's only going to be a limited amount for everybody else and all these kind of old ideas. We need to let go of those now because they are not serving us, right? So, for example, I have started following a coach by the name of Melanie Ann Leah, which some of you will know I've referenced before. And Melanie, for me, really is the personification of the queen in many ways. She's still young, she's still only 33. 5-6 years ago, she was homeless, right? She's French-Canadian, true story. Just a few years ago, she was homeless. She was living in her car. She was literally hand to mouth. She was officially bankrupt. She'd lost everything. She'd lost her apartment. Her relationship had collapsed. She'd broken ties with her family. She was like seriously questioning what she was even doing here anymore. She hit a complete rock bottom. From that rock bottom that she hit where she felt like she'd lost everything, the only way was up, right? So she started reading all these self-help books and really starting to understand herself and analyze what had happened in her life, what had gone so wrong. And she devoured all these books until eventually she realized that she was ready to become a coach. So she started coaching people from her car, where she was living in this hardware store car park. Unbeknownst to the people she was coaching, she was literally coaching them on her phone in her car. And that's how she started building up her coaching business piecemeal, client by client, from this car park, until she had enough money coming in that she could afford a basic bed sit, and then from there an apartment, and then she built herself up from scratch. This girl now has a multi-million-dollar coaching industry, coaching business. She runs it all from Facebook. She doesn't spend a lot of money on marketing, advertising, or any of the things that she'd been led to believe she would need to do in order to have a successful business. She has a very small team of trusted people around her. Her sister is one of them, her mother is another, her childhood best friend is another. So she's got an amazing but very small team of people that support her. And she is regularly smashing $1 million months with her coaching business. Now, when I first saw her on a live, I was like, not so sure about this girl, you know, eyebrows a little crazy. And I was having all these kind of shallow thoughts about her and judgments and things like that. But I persevered, and I watched a second one of her lives, and I was like, no, she's definitely got something, this girl. She's really intuitive. She's really smart. She's got a lot of integrity. She's really got some amazing teachings. I really like her. And one of the things that Melanie embodies for me, and this is a very key feature of the Queen archetype, is she embodies great generosity, and she also allows herself to receive equally generously, right? So she runs this coaching business, you know, it is her heart and soul. She puts everything into it. She is so devoted to all of the women that are in her Alpha Femme group. She's got about 27,000 women in that group, which is phenomenal. She cares deeply about them. A lot of them, she could tell you, you know, in quite a lot of detail what their story is and their achievements are and how much they've come along under her sort of support and everything else. A lot of the women she's working with, their financial situation has just been completely revolutionized by Melanie's empowerment coaching around finances and all the other things that she coaches on. So she offers people a huge, huge potential for transformation. And she requires a lot of investment from the women who want to work with her in financial form, right? Now, as women, what can happen quite often when we see another queen like Melanie badassing all the way to the bank, making huge amounts of money, but also providing a really beautiful and incredible service to thousands of women whose lives are completely transformed by working with her. As women, we can sometimes contract around other women who are doing that well, right? And we can fall into these thought patterns of, well, who does she think she is? And why does she want to make all that money? And why is she charging so much? And blah, blah, blah. If we fall into that way of thinking, we then contract around attracting those same things that she embodies that we may also like to attract, right? So I started following her at a time where I was ready to change my relationship with money. I realized that she was the one who was going to help me with that, because she has transcended all of her limiting beliefs around wealth, power, success, joy, healthy relationships, you know, all the things that she's manifested in her life that she now supports other people to manifest in their lives. So by keeping my heart open to what this woman is doing, I have allowed myself to be guided by her and to start to play in the same kind of energy that she's playing in. Now, before Christmas, she had a download for a masterclass that she wanted to offer. It was the 28th of December. And she said, I thought I'd finished with my offerings for this year, but I've had this download. This masterclass is going to be amazing. And it's going to be $111. And here's the link and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, my mind was blown, right? Because part of me is like, is she for real that she's going to charge people $111 to watch her or to listen to her speaking for an hour? Like, that's insane. But hundreds and hundreds of women were typing in the chat saying, I'm in, sounds amazing, can't wait. I didn't sign up for that masterclass, but I seriously considered it. Now, I have never in my life come anywhere remotely close to considering spending $111 to listen to somebody speak for an hour. But this is the power of this girl's magnetism. Every time I listen to her, and she offers a lot of free masterclasses as well as the paid ones, every time I listen to her, something inside me recalibrates around her expansive energy, around what she is bold enough and brave enough to attract and to call into her life, right? So if we can start to play with making connections with other women who are seriously raising the bar, we can allow them to inspire us to raise the bar in our own lives. If it wasn't for Melanie, there is no way that I would be offering this live and to have had the courage to ask to receive money for it. There's no way. But she set the blueprint. She showed me that it's possible. And I decided, fuck it. You only live once. I trust myself. I trust what I'm offering here. I know that I'm offering something which is really valuable. I know that I've, offered a whole series of free lives, and I'm ready to raise the bar for myself one more time and see how it feels to actually receive money back. That's been a whole process. But the energy of the Queen is a commitment to lifelong expansion, right? In order to really play in this field of expansion, we have to be willing to relinquish comfort for growth. Because where we stay really comfortable, there is no growth. And where there's no growth, there's stagnation. And we didn't come here to stagnate, right? We came here to offer our unique gifts. And every single one of us has got these gifts. We just need to tune in, get really clear what they are, and then offer them out to the world. And that's exactly what she is modeling. So to come back to one of the other qualities that I was talking about, the willingness to give generously of the teachings. The teachings that she's giving, or the masterclasses that I'm giving, are not something that you pull out of a hat. It's something that it's the culmination, if you like, of decades of deep diving and decades of inner exploration and decades of being completely like an archaeologist, almost like shining a light underground in every aspect of my own psyche to really understand the wholeness of every single part of myself, so that I can then ultimately begin to share these insights and things with other people. She's doing exactly the same thing. The point is that it has a value. All of the deep diving that we've done, all of the trainings that we've done, all of the time and energy that we've committed to transforming ourselves has a value. And for us to really be in the Queen energy, there has to be a symbiosis between giving generously and receiving generously. If we are only giving generously, eventually we become barren, we become energetically spent, we become exhausted and depleted, and then we become resentful, right, of other people for sucking on our energy. So when we have a lot of energy and we have a lot of pulling power and we have a lot of influence and leadership qualities, how do we stay in balance? How do we allow ourselves to receive back so that the cup is always running over? And in Melanie's case, it's by giving very generously with the teachings and also requiring a lot of generosity from the women that she's training. So the invitation for this aspect of the Queen archetype is to maybe journal around, to what extent am I willing to receive? What is my relationship with receiving? Because many of us who have money stories, and I've had them for many years, have a kind of deflecting energy around receiving, right? But I'm stepping into a whole new paradigm around the concept of wealth, because it does not bequeath me anymore to live a life of being hand to mouth. You know, there are things that I want to do. I want to own my own home. I want to have choice about where I live. I want to be able to be generous with my friends. I want to have money in the bank. You know, these are all things that as you get older, you start to really realize are important, or I've started to realize are important. So shifting this relationship with money, holding our wealth, having the ability to hold wealth, is another really key component to stepping into this queen frequency, right? So consider the people that you're surrounding yourself with. Consider the extent to which they are in their queen, expansive, growing energy. As a queen, and I'm talking to all of you now, it is important to assemble a council, right? Every queen has her council. Have a think about who the key players are in your life who have a seat at the table. Imagine you are the queen presiding over this council of people that you've appointed to be there in your life. And consider whether those people who are on your council have appointed themselves to be there, or whether you have invited them. Consider whether they are worthy to be on your council, right? And consider what roles each of those people fulfills in your life. Because as women, I think one of the misconceptions that we have is to be strong, we have to not need anyone. We have to be independent. This is all part of the programming that we've had as well. And I'm somebody who's lived my life being fiercely independent for a really long time, but to the detriment of myself and to the detriment of being able to ask for help when it's needed. So the queen has the wisdom to appoint people in her life who deserve to have a seat at that table. These people that have a front row seat in your life, what are the qualities that those people ideally should be embodying to be worthy to be there? Number one, are they rooting for your expansion? Do you feel that these people who are at your table really want to see you grow, really want to see you shine, really want to see you expand, get new opportunities, travel, take a friend of mine who had the opportunity to move to Los Angeles a year ago because her husband got a really big break in a TV show in America, and her best friend was like so angry with her for moving to LA. That's a whole different story. But the point there is, do your friends support your growth and expansion? Because for them to have a front row seat at the table in your life, I would really suggest that is such an important characteristic. Are the people who are on your council people who are also walking the walk, people who are showing integrity in their own lives, people who are committed to their own inner work, people who can do the shadow work, have the difficult conversations with you, work through triggers if they come up? All these things are so important for me to feel that those people I've appointed in those key positions are the right people to be there, right? And the other thing that is so important to get clear on is what role the members of your council, what role each of them plays on that body, right? So for example, my cousin is the perfect person for me to go to if I have any, for example, questions about when I was selling my flat. So legal solicitor type stuff, he's really good on that. Mobile phone contract questions, you know, those type of practical problem solving, paperwork type problems, amazing. My friend Steph, any questions that I've got around juicing, well-being, questions around holistic health and ethics, she's the person that I would go to for that. My friend Maru is the most incredible space holder. She can listen with her full body, her full attention. She can provide the most incredible insights when you share with her what's going on in your deepest, darkest moments, you know, and she can hold such a compassionate space. So she is the perfect person for me to go to if I'm dealing with something really deep or really sensitive that I really need to trust the right person to hold. It's Maru. So for this aspect of understanding the archetype of the Queen in your own life, the invitation is to think about, are you clear in your life on who the go-to people are for specific things? And do you have the wisdom and the discernment to go to the right people for the right things, to get the right type of support in the right situations? Because so many times in life where we can go a little bit awry is going to the wrong people at the wrong moment for the wrong type of help or the wrong type of support, and then wondering why we didn't get it, wondering why we couldn't receive it, and then clashing with that person, and then potentially clamming up and thinking, well, I was right to think that I just need to be independent because when I ask for help, it doesn't come, or it doesn't come in the right form. And therefore, I'm just going to like retract again and just look after myself. Tempting to go back into that contraction. But the more enlightened thing to do is to really, really feel into who is on your council. What specific gifts, roles, and areas of your life are they there to support you with? And remember that what you might give to those people is not necessarily the same thing that they give back to you. And again, that can be another reason why we can fall into tricky dynamics with people, is thinking that I've given this person this, therefore they need to respond in the same way. Doesn't necessarily work like that. So, for example, something that I realized that I really needed to allow myself to receive more is touch, right? And particularly if you're not in a romantic relationship, touch can be something that can be really lacking. And at the moment, I feel that I'm giving a lot of energy out in lots of different areas of my life. I'm running a lot of support groups, well-being groups, teaching ESOL, doing coaching sessions, doing these lives, you know, lots of things where I'm sort of giving out energy. And I started to feel in recent weeks that my battery was starting to go down a little bit. And a friend said to me, well, perhaps you need to just do a bit more self-care. And I said to her, you know what? It's not a lack of self-care. I do a lot of self-care. It's a lack of touch. And it was so refreshing to have such a clear understanding of what area I needed to receive in. And it was so freaking simple. So once I had that clarity, because as I said before, to maintain this energy of a leader, to maintain this energy of somebody who gives generously, it's really important to have the grace to allow others to bless us back, right? Otherwise, this imbalance that I've referred to just keeps coming back. So Once I realised that I needed the touch, my next quest was to ask for it. And I put a post out on Facebook saying that I feel it's lacking in my life. And I would like to invite more of it, because it's important to focus on what we would like to magnetize rather than what's, not there. And lo and behold, a beautiful soul popped up and said, in a private message, I'd be really happy to help you with that. I'd be really happy to offer that. So believe it or not, ladies, I have now appointed myself a royal foot holder. Because what I realized that I needed more than anything, so simple, was just somebody to hold my feet, right? Because for me, having my feet held gives my nervous system an instant balm, an instant relaxation. It makes me feel safe. It makes me feel held. My breathing drops into a deeper flow. Like, it's transformative for me. So I literally put a request out for somebody to hold my feet. Many people said they would be delighted to if they lived closer to me. One person who happens to be local said, yeah, I can do that. Now, this was uncharted territory for me, to have somebody come over, make pleasantries with this person, bearing in mind this is somebody that I very much love and trust. But we haven't seen each other for ages, so normally one would make pleasantries for a while. There was very little of that because this person really understands me and knew that that's what I needed. A few minutes of chatting, and then I lay down, and for an hour and 20 minutes, I just had my feet held with full love from this person. And this person said to me, it is a delight to do this for you. It is my pleasure to do this for you. But how often do we really allow other people to hold us, both physically and metaphorically, right? Very often, we're so in this kind of yang energy of doing and achieving and getting through lists and all these things that take us into an outer doing energy, a yanging energy. But for me to be able to stay resourced in that outer yanging energy, there has to be this flowing equilibrium between receiving nourishment in this yin state of being held. It felt like a whole new ball game to me to allow somebody to come to the house and just do that for me and not to give him anything back, because that's part of the coding as well, that we have to keep giving back so we don't owe anybody anything. But when we attract the right people in our lives who really want to bless us and really want to show us love, and we can have the grace and the humility, for me it requires quite a lot of humility to acknowledge that I need resourcing from others, to ask for it takes a certain amount of vulnerability, particularly asking for it in a public place. To receive a yes is kind of quite vulnerable as well, because it's like, oh my God, somebody actually wants to do this for me. And to know that the universe wants to support us to be in balance, right? So as soon as we make an energetic request, and as soon as we know that we are worthy of that, it can't not come. It has to come. So I would definitely encourage some journaling around this notion of how willing are you to receive? How attuned are you to asking for things that you need from the right people? And how aware are you that the people that you give things to are not necessarily the people who will give back? Very often we attach to who should be giving us these things. And that contraction means that we often then create resistance around receiving those things from other people who may actually be better suited to giving us what we need, right? So just to do a little recap for myself as well as for you, I've talked about the energy of the Queen leading by her own vibration. In other words, having the clarity and the purpose to know what her mission is, what her soul work is, what she would like to share with the world, her purpose and sense of direction, and she follows that, and other people are naturally likely to also be inspired by that. So we don't need to chase approval, we don't need to chase followers. We've talked about the need to transcend the social approval, right? To need other people to validate us as we begin to expand. Because when we stay stuck in that energy of needing validation from others, unfortunately, if others have not yet taken those leaps of faith in their lives, they're not going to be able to be the ones to support us as we begin to do that. So surrounding ourselves with people who have set the bar higher and allowing ourselves to play in the frequency of those people is how we ultimately can allow our own expansion to flourish best. The other thing that really struck me as being a key aspect of the Queen archetype is being in connection with the divine. I started watching some films about different queens. Particularly, I was looking at the film of Queen Elizabeth I, The Golden Age. And what I realised is that in pretty much every film that depicts a queen, there is always a scene in that film where the queen is in a chapel by herself, praying on her knees. And when I realised that pretty much every film about queens has that scene, I started to analyse what that says about the Queen archetype. There are always scenes where the Queen is surrounded by her council of advisors, right? And in those kind of films, some of those advisors have got the Queen's best interests at heart and some of them don't. And very often those meetings with the advisors, with the council, will be talking about invasions from other countries and military strategy and how the general population are responding to the monarchy and, you know, civil unrest and those kind of like very out there, worldly, combative kind of energies. So very often in films about queens, there are always scenes where she's retracted from the noise of the masculine energy, the yang energy of the outer world, and the petitions for her attention and the ways in which people are trying to pull her and manipulate her and get her to agree to certain things. The Queen always retires to the chapel at some point in the film. And the Queen is depicted in the chapel on her knees, right? It's the only time she's depicted on her knees in the whole film is when she's in the chapel to pray. So to me, this shows the importance of the Queen archetype. When she is in alignment, the power that she has and the influence that she has must be balanced with the energy of humility. Hence the depiction of her on her knees. As she prays, she's seeking her own counsel from a higher authority. Because to quote a line from A Course in Miracles, no problem was ever solved at the level of consciousness with which it was created, right? So in order for the Queen to tap into a higher frequency of knowing, she has to escape from the noise. So for us in our daily lives, that may look like escaping into nature. That may look like maintaining a yoga practice or a meditation practice or a sound healing practice or whatever that is. But essentially, the prayer scenes are symbolic of the Queen connecting with her own higher consciousness, her own deeper knowing, in order to guide her decision making, in order to help her to receive the downloads that she needs to receive to know how to lead her country, lead her people in a way that is done with integrity and skill and awareness. And for me, there's a connection between the prayerfulness of connecting with the divine, connecting with the higher self, and knowing and remembering that we are in service, right? Any leader, any woman who aspires to really ground herself into this queen energy, to lead others, to support others, to inspire others, it's so important to remember that we are in service. And for example, doing these lives, right? Like if I allow myself to think that it's about me and what people think about me or how I come across, that would completely block my flow. I wouldn't be able to do it. The only thing that enables me to take this like courageous step to do these lives is to remember that I'm in service, and to remember that if there's one thing that comes through me to say that inspires a new thought or a new idea or a new possibility in someone else's mind so that they can continue with their own expansion and their own inner inquiry, then that is being in service, right? So to be in service to something which is greater than ourselves keeps the ego in check and enables the queen to reign over her queendom from a place of integrity. So that's a super important thing. Another aspect of the integrated queen archetype is that she is at peace with all aspects of herself, right? Because in order for the queen to be astute enough to suss out other people, to have razor sharp instincts about other people's motivations and intentions, to sense people's energies, to know whether people are in alignment or not in alignment, she needs to have a very sharp awareness of herself, a really powerful inner knowing. And as women, we have been very much trained out of trusting our own superpowers, our own wisdom, our own gifts. We've been taught that our sexuality is somehow shameful, that our intuition is somehow frivolous, you know? So all of our superpowers, by this kind of masculine culture that we find ourselves in, have been somehow deemed to be of little or no value, when in actual fact they are the things which are of the greatest value to us when we learn to really harness them. So for the queen to be really empowered, she must know how to use all of her superpowers. She must respect all of her superpowers, and she must be willing to go through a deconditioning process of having been taught that those superpowers don't have value or that there's something wrong in them. A woman's sensitivity is one of her strongest superpowers. So the deep diving that we are required to do in order to really be able to assume the queen archetype fully requires us to welcome and allow and make peace with all aspects of our own psyche, right? And all expressions of our own emotions. And so many of the emotions that we have been taught are bad or wrong or we need to hide are actually the ones that have the most transformational power. So for example, when we feel a lot of grief, when we feel a lot of sadness and the tears come and we've been conditioned to block those tears, we have to reteach ourselves to allow those tears to come, because that is energy in motion. That is stuckness or old pain that is now ready to move, and that is a natural flow. When the tears come, it's a natural flow for that energy to move through. And when we begin to completely transform our relationship with our own emotions, instead of thinking, oh, I'm crying and I shouldn't be crying and it's a sign of weakness or whatever, if we can really just turn that idea on its head and start to think that our ability to express emotion is an incredible human capacity that we have, right? Because When we release the tears, we release stuck energy, we allow things to flow again, we feel lighter, our heart begins to open again, we feel more compassionate again towards ourselves and to other people. Those are the gifts of allowing pain and grief and sadness to flow through. Or when anger comes, an emotion that we've really been taught to malign and to hide at all costs because it's bad or it's socially unacceptable. Yeah, Ria's just said she's got no issue with the crying thing. Yes, some of us as women are okay with crying, less comfortable with expressing maybe more masculine energies, or, you know, things that are considered more fiery, like anger, for example. But anger is something which in recent years I've been playing with, because I've realized that there's a lot of energy in anger. There's a lot of transformational power in anger, right? It helps us to move fire. It helps us to release whatever we've been holding on to. Often anger comes when there's a sense of injustice or a sense of having been wronged in some way. And to allow that to move through is so transformational, because it means that we're not holding on to it. Yeah, so Lucy said she's okay with crying, but less so with anger. Emma said, yeah, I really struggle to allow anger to come up. Yeah. You know why we've been conditioned so heavily that anger is bad? Is because anger is fucking powerful. And if there's one thing that this culture has tried to do, it's to squash powerful women. Anger, the expression of anger, is very closely linked to the energy of passion, right? So we think of passion as a more positive energy, let's say, and anger as a negative one, but they're very, very similar. Anger comes up when we've been wronged. Anger comes up when there's a sense of injustice. Anger comes up when there's a sense that the world is being run and organized in a way which is completely out of alignment with who we really are. There's a scene in the Bible, right, where Jesus comes into the temple and finds people trading in there on a holy day, and just goes crazy and starts trashing the place. And we don't see Jesus get angry in any other part of the Bible, as far as I know, but that scene stands out because it's an expression of righteous anger, right? That something holy was being violated, and he wanted to express that in a very forthright way so that people could really see. Louise said, anger is easier for me, crying is harder. Yeah, exactly. So all of us will have certain blocks with different emotions that we've been trained are not socially palatable for other people to see or experience. The invitation for that aspect of the embodiment of the full empowered woman is to look at which aspects of your emotional landscape are least comfortable for you. What do you associate with anger? What would happen if you expressed your anger? For a lot of us, it's a loss of control, right? If I allow myself to get angry, I'm out of control. If I'm out of control, I don't trust myself. If I don't trust myself, I might do X. And if we really follow through with the steps of what we're afraid of or where the blocks have come from, and then start to get playful. Lindsay said, I used to have no problem with releasing anger, but as I've got older, I felt it was wrong to do so. Yeah. So how about if we let go, or we begin to let go of all notion that some feelings are bad, some feelings are good, some expressions are bad, some expressions are good. How about if we began to feel into an energy that every emotion that flows through you is valid. Every emotion that flows through you deserves to be acknowledged and deserves to find some kind of safe expression. What happens when we don't express things like anger is that they get expressed in a more secondary way, i.e. we become withdrawn, we become resentful, we can resort to spiteful comments, right? Because that energy is so powerful, it wants to find a way out. If we don't welcome it in its cleanest form, it will find its way out in a mutated form, which is ultimately more harmful to our relationships than when it's expressed in its wholesome form. I like to play with anger. If I feel it coming up, I love to get my shamanic drum and bang it. I love to dance. I love to scream. I love to like grunt. I love to get in the car and just call everyone a bastard. And, you know, whatever it is that you can do to healthily express, become playful. Become playful. Treat every aspect of yourself and your emotions as a guest that has come to visit you because it has a message. It has something to reveal to you. It wants to be felt and alchemized so that it can move through you. But whatever gets blocked stays. Whatever stays becomes problematic because it becomes stagnant energy locked into the cells of our bodies, which ultimately can result in physical and other types of ailments and dis-ease, right? So to bring it back to the queen, when she is fully embodied and integrated, knows all aspects of herself, respects all aspects of herself, gives space and permission for the expression of all aspects of herself, and thus she becomes an integrated being. Enlightenment, I used to think was this lofty, thing that I could never possibly aspire to attain to. I was very fascinated by the Buddha sitting by the tree for all that time until eventually he understood the meaning of life and the meaning of consciousness and everything else. But enlightenment to me now, in my world, in my reality, in a much more kind of accessible way, is welcoming every single part of myself home. Seeing every aspect of my psyche, my desires, my thoughts, my feelings, my emotions, my longings, allowing all of them to breathe, to have their presence, to be felt, almost as if they were children, right? That when we withhold love from one part of ourselves, we are somehow standing in the way of becoming the fully integrated beings that we came here to be. There is such a freedom in becoming a fully integrated being. When the queen embodies the fullness of who she really is, when all of these shadow elements or so-called shadow elements have been allowed and expressed and welcomed, they transform into light. As they transform into light, the queen becomes more and more magnetic to others. She therefore has more power. With that power, she has more influence. But in order for her to use that influence wisely, she must stay in a place of humility. She must stay aligned to a higher purpose, a soul calling, a commitment to somehow improving the world or somehow improving the reality of the lives of the people that she touches, right? When we are fully integrated in who we are, we give permission to other women to also welcome home the aspects of themselves that they've annexed somehow. And there is such profound healing in that. Because when we have welcomed every part of ourselves, we no longer seek the approval of other people in the same way to validate us and to give us permission to be who we are. And by no longer being a slave to needing validation from others, we are somehow liberated and free and able to live our full purpose, right? We're not here ultimately to keep getting tangled up in these complex dynamics with other people. When they come up, we need to obviously deal with them, bring consciousness to them, work through them. But the more we learn to welcome all aspects of ourselves, the less of a vibrational match we are for conflict and triggering dynamics with people externally and needing permission from other people to be who we are. And then the clearer our path is to really step up into the next level of our purpose and our mission. So, I think I have covered the main points that I set out to cover. Leading by vibration, transcending the need for social approval, being in service to others and being connected with the divine, knowing all of our superpowers and learning how to really harness them and use them, integrating all aspects of ourselves so that we are no longer in a place of war or conflict internally, so that we are bringing that integrated energy out into the world and seeing a more harmonious world reflected to us outside. That is why, as far as I see it, the inner work is the single most important thing we can do if we want to see meaningful change in the external world. Talked about the importance of integrity, being honorable, being true to our word, making sure that whatever it is we're putting into the outer world is a true reflection of our inner value system, our inner beliefs, so that we're no longer presenting one aspect of ourselves to the outer world whilst having a very different reality internally. All of that needs to be integrated as well so that we can move forward in the world in a more aligned way. We've talked about the importance of having your council of people, your advisors, your supporters, people who support your expansion, surrounding yourself by other queens and allowing their energy to rub off on you so that them expanding no longer intimidates you, but is an incredible invitation for you to really fully step into the fullness of who you are in your own unique way. And we've talked about learning to hold power and wealth as we grow and as we create more abundance around ourselves. Holding those elements are also key to fully stepping into the power of the queendom. And finally, we talked about giving and receiving generously so that we do not become depleted and our energy overflows, so that we can continue to be in service to all of those around us. And I think that is as much as I have to share this evening. I have got no idea how long I've been talking for, but that was really scary to do my first paid live. Super terrifying. Thank you so much for raising me up and supporting me and believing in me and receiving these pointings and being here tonight. And thank you. Just a huge thank you for all the support, for all of you who followed me so far. As you know, I'm going to be using all of your contributions to this live to pay for my transformational coaching course, which I'm starting in April. So super excited for that. I really hope that there's been something here that has touched you. If anybody would like to share in the comments a particular area of the queendom aspects that I talked about that you think, yeah, I want to focus on that, I want to think about that, that would be super useful. And last but not least is the prize draw. So, as you will probably remember in the event description, I said that I would like to give out 4 prizes. 2 of them, well, there's a cash prize, which is going to be £50. There is a pink bottle of champagne, because every queen needs to drink pink champagne. A coaching session with me, which if you happen to win that one, I would suggest that maybe you wait until there's something really juicy that you want to look at and then book in. And there is a piece of my macrame artwork, which is also going to be a prize. Let me just check who said what. Misha said, I can't wait to reflect on what I'm willing to receive amazing. Lindsay, accepting myself fully and allowing myself to ask for help. Yes. Yes. Keep those coming, actually, because I'd love to see whatever other people want to say about that as well. So, the first prize is the cash prize, £50. Let me see, let's give these a little shuffle, make sure I'm not looking. That prize goes to Jenny Sorden, but she's not here on the call, but she will be watching the replay. So Jenny, you've just won £50, which is pretty epic. A queen gives generously and receives generously. So there you go. And the second prize is the coaching session. And that one goes to Deborah Summers, who's also watching on the replay. Deborah, you've won a coaching session with yours truly, as in when you feel you'd like to claim that, I'm here for you. The next prize is the bottle of pink champagne. And that prize goes to Chris Mike Moore. He's watching on the replay because he's chefing tonight. But Chris, you've won yourself a bottle of pink champagne. He's the only man who signed up for this session, so he deserves it. And the final one is a piece of my macrame artwork. And that one goes to Lizzie. Whoop, whoop. Lizzie, you get a piece of my macrame. So I'm going to send you a photo of 2 wall hangings and 1 bottle hanging thing. And you can tell me which one you like, and I will get that to you. So I'm giving you a live example of receiving generously, giving generously, because this is what will keep us in alignment, ladies. This is what will keep our energy high. And right now we're in a paradigm where there's so many things going on in the world. We need to keep that energy high. Congratulations to the winners, Emma said. Well done, Lindsay said. Ria's done the queen archetype emoji, sorry. Misha, thank you. Well done, everybody. Yes, Queens. Paula, it was such an enjoyable evening. Thank you, Paula. I'm so glad. Oh my God, that was so scary. But I got myself a crown, ladies. I've never had a crown in my life, but I ordered it online, especially for tonight. And I just want to say, I really, really hope that me having the courage to do this and to step up and to begin to really shine in a way that I've never, ever had the courage to do before, I just really hope that that motivates you and gives you a feeling of permission that you also are allowed to shine. And not only are you allowed to shine, but you are meant to shine. We are here for the shining, ladies. Lindsay, I've loved this, very inspiring. I've loved this so much. Thank you, Lucy. Thank you so much, Lulu. I love you. I think you should wear your crown whilst food shopping. Paula, I think I'm already attracting somewhat of unwanted attention to myself by not necessarily covering my face. So I think a crown as well could potentially get me arrested, but thanks for the suggestion. Ria, you're shining bright, my darling. Thank you, Ria, so much. Shine bright like a diamond. Yes. And if you have any examples of shining bright and you want to post them in the group later or start a chat or anything like that, I would absolutely love to hear any stories of how you might like to step up and shine in some way and give yourself permission to be as magical as you are. And I will see you all very soon. You'd have had the discount on the salmon. If you've not seen my salmon story yesterday in Morrison's, treat yourselves. It's epic. I was in there for about an hour and a half trying to buy some salmon, and in the end it wasn't possible. But that's one for another day. Yeah, I love that comment, Emma. That's really funny. Okay, ladies, well, I'm going to say goodbye. And I hope you have a wonderful evening, and thank you so much for being part of this. And I will be back with more lives soon, but I'm going to have a little break from it for now. Thank you. I love you. Thank you. I love you too, Ria. And thank you, Paula. Thank you, everybody. I love you. Thank you. Thank you, guys.